Let's get right into it. Ridhi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm gonna, I did a quick, sort of a quick deep dive into what you're about, and you're a Swiss artist of Indian origin. Did you ever think that you'd be on hot rotation on India's largest international radio network?
Actually, I never really thought that I would even get into music in the first place. I got into music when I was around, I think I was like 8 years old, into opera and jazz, and that was just for fun. And then after that, we moved. My family moved around a lot, so we finally got based in Switzerland. And music was always a passion of mine, but I never thought I would get into it. And so, after a few crude, I would rather not talk about agents, I finally kind of expressed myself in the Indian market because that's where I resonated the most, and it made sense. And I'm so thankful that I got all of these opportunities for sure.
Well, judging from that answer, you've obviously had, a few unpleasant experiences in the music biz. Is that why you've decided to handle things yourself? Are you doing it on your own? Is this like a whole indie setup, a DIY
Yes.
thing?
Yeah, thank God. Yes. So I was actually with like two labels before this, but labels suck because they, first of all, especially if you're not big already, they kind of don't pay enough attention to you and they don't pay enough attention to your brand. And I'd already been deep into it. I started when I was 15. I'm 19 now. So I know this system and the way, the marketing goes. So it just made sense to be on my own and not have to rely on somebody who didn't care enough. And with my sister and the team, I've built through the years, I feel like we have what it takes to hopefully have a basis that stands on its own.
So what is your brand then, Ridhi? How would you like to define yourself, your music, your sound, and what you stand for as an artist?
So my music is, the genre is Indo-Western, so it always mixes in those Indian elements. I have a lot of tabla, a lot of sitar in all of my songs. I only really started getting into that around, I think it was like 2 years ago. Merry-Go-Round was my first concrete song that I finally, incorporated all of those elements in, and it resonated the most with my audience as well. And then from there, I just started creating more music like that. And as an artist, I stand for, I get diversity for sure, just because I've experienced so many cultures growing up. And just women empowerment. Guilty Feet, which is the next single that that's coming out. I'm not sure if it's out when I'm saying this, but the next single that's there
Yes.
is, it talks about guilty desires. I feel like as an Indian woman, as Indian women and as a young Indian woman as well, I've seen the different cultures and I've seen the negative aspects of cultures, and I've seen how in Indian culture as well, somehow women are made to feel ashamed of certain desires and certain self-expressions that they have. So Guilty Feet is all about incorporating that guilt and loving that guilt, right? And it's just like letting your feet take you to where that guilt is. So it's all about, self-empowerment, and just loving myself, because I didn't get to do that growing up, especially.
Right. So your music carries some pretty relevant messages, right? Your music carries some very relevant messages, that of inclusivity for starters. What's the overriding message that you bring as an artist? I mean, what do you stand for as an artist?
I stand for diversity. I stand for, I feel like, acceptance. I'm still figuring myself out as well. So it's almost like through my music, I'm also figuring myself out, and hopefully I resonate with young people, and young adults in the way that even they're figuring themselves out. So it's what I stand for is definitely in independence, in inclusivity, and just not being ashamed of who you are. That's
Right.
those three.
We got to talk about your Stop the B campaign. B as in for bullying.
And
What
bullshit.
made
Stop the beef. Stop
yeah. Stop the B, stop the bullying and the bullshit. But what made you and your sister? Your sister is very, very intrinsic to this whole advocacy effort of yours as well. What made you and your sister take up the cause?
So I actually, again, I was brought up in Switzerland for most of my life. I went to boarding school there, and when I had started boarding school there, first few years, of course, and as a young adult, you don't, as a child, I was 9, you don't experience bullying as much, or you don't feel it. But then as I grew older, I realized that, there were situations of bullying that were taking place, and especially against my culture, hence the incorporation of Indian elements in my music. So it kind of made me feel ashamed whilst I was growing up. Like, for example, there'd be snide remarks about Hinduism, there'd be snide remarks about, why don't you eat beef, or like, it was getting to a point where, you know, it would add up, but teachers would not do anything about it. Then it got to, I think I was around 14, where it got really bad. There were these new girls that came in, and obviously growing up, everyone wants to feel accepted. So there's this phenomena called sheep mimicry. They're all just kind of copying each other in order to feel like they're part of a group. And unfortunately, I was the target of that group. So what happened was they would just continuously enter my room, and they would not leave. There would be instances of, you know, I would try and, you know, I would tell them to get out. And obviously it's a boarding school. I need my space. I'm growing up. I'm also at those years. I would then tell the teachers, and the teachers would do nothing about it, because bullying, again, is taken as cliche. It happens to every kid growing up. That's what people say. And that's totally not how it should be. And then, so I switched many schools. I then had, again, Switzerland's a very small country, 8 million population or something like that. And so I went from this boarding school to another school where they all knew all about it because of social media. Now, this bullying that was physical, in the way that it was verbal and it was to my face, now turned to online platforms where they were kind of harassing me through text messages, finding my new classmates and messaging my new classmates. And then I switched schools again. And then, believe it or not,
serious?
I know. So it was a ton of changing schools, and my sister was like my main force of action, and like my main, you know, pillar of strength. So through it all, she was witnessing it all, and at one point she cried for me. So I was just sitting on the bed, and she's like, "This is so terrible," and I was like, "Why are you crying? It's my turn to cry, not yours." So, you know, it just felt like there were so many of these situations, and I'm lucky enough to have, you know, the privilege and the background to start something that can help others go through the same kind of situation, especially being Indian in a country that doesn't have many Indians. So like I would be ashamed of, you know, my heritage for a bit. Like I remember when I was younger, I'd be like, no, I'm not, you know, I don't have Indian roots. But like now I'm loving it, embracing it, because it's so rich, right? And I feel like there's outside, the Indians outside, sometimes it's hard for us to remember, you know, we are who we are, and we've got so much history and so much culture. And the reason we have so many smells in our food is because we have flavor, right? Like forget the flavorless food, like embrace ourselves. So that's, you know, that's the whole cost of How Stop the Bee started.
Wow. You know, I'm quite sure that a lot of the Indians who live overseas and have been, you know, born and brought up overseas will resonate with what you've been going through and what you've done. And I think they're going to take a lot of courage and strength from what you are doing in terms of just stop the whole bullying process, right? Stop the bullying completely across all age groups, I'm quite sure it's very, very prevalent, you know, in our country as well. And the kids go through some harrowing times, which affects them, I think, for the rest of their lives sometimes. So I think what you're doing is so important. Now let's come to the brains. We hear that you're academically as well very accomplished, and you're studying chemical engineering. In fact, you just sort of rushed in from a lecture, I'm guessing, to catch this interview.
Yeah. Yes. No, so I'm second year of chemical engineering in London. But I know girls can really do it all. So it's you know, I couldn't have done it without my mother or my sister or my father. So family, you know, family strength is everything. But it's a tough course for sure, but it's something that through my childhood never left me. That's one thing that I really stress in my day-to-day life, and like anytime I ever talk to someone that's younger than me, who is hopefully not mistaking me for their age, because I'm very socially awkward. If they ask me for advice, I'd say stick to your education and stick to, you know, what your passions are. For example, if it's music, stick to music. If it's art, stick to art. But it's something that never left me. People leave, right? Heartbreaks happen, but the only thing that won't leave you is your brains and your hobbies and your passions, for sure.
Right. And you're quite the package. You got beauty and brains, and you're talented, and you're, you know, fierce. And like you said, you know, the girls rule the world, and you stand for that. You stand for female empowerment. So good on you. Let's talk about the music.
Please.
All right. So just quickly, what's the last song that you listened to? Just trying to figure out where your headspace is at. What's the last song that you listened to?
Oh, I think it was, I forgot, his name is Spanish name, Enrique Iglesias. I forgot how to say his name. But there was a song.
Yes.
Yes, I can never say his name, his last name. There is a song, I don't understand his lyric. It's like, I love to see you cry, and I keep listening to it because I'm like, what is he trying to say? So I think I've been trying to like, I think the engineering brain is coming out in this song. I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand what he's saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But
that's a classic tune right there. But of course, I mean, he's gorgeous. Enrique Iglesias. All right.
he's old now, though. Not my age group.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the younger guys are, the younger Latino men are equally accomplished. They're really ruling the charts these days.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, things that only RIDI says. Things that only RIDI says when she's on a date.
I've never been on a date, so probably nothing. I've not been in a relationship, nor do I plan to be in one. So it's, I think no one should have the time right at this age to be on dates or be in relationships. I think, stick your head in your books. It's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, things that only RIDI says when she's late for class, perhaps.
No, I just sneak in. Like, what did I miss? I go to the first person in the front. I sit in the front, so it's
Yeah.
easier for me to like kind of understand what I missed. So I'm like, what did I miss? That's probably
Oh,
what I say.
okay. Wow. You're determined. And the last one, things that only RIDI says when she finds out that she's on hot rotation on Radio 1.
This is the coolest thing I've ever experienced, and thank you so much. I am blessed. For
All
sure.
right. On that note, let's get you to share more about your upcoming tune, Guilty Feet, which drops 17th Jan. Over to you, RIDI.
So, Guilty Feet, again, I think I mentioned it before. It's a fusion of Indo-Western music. So it has tabla, sitar, and it has electric guitar inside for the Western fusion. It talks about, it's a very cheeky track. So it's the first time, I'm 19, right? So in the past, I could never make such a cheeky track because I'm a minor. But now I'm able to kind of have those expressions expressed. That's not proper English, but yes.
Get it?
And yeah, so the whole track as a whole, it incorporates the elements of I have feelings, I have desires, and I regret them sometimes, and it makes me feel guilty, but I can't help it. My feet are taking me towards these feelings and these expressions, and I want to be independent. I want to be cheeky. I want to feel beautiful, as should any woman, and I don't want to be ashamed of it, right? So that's the whole crust of it. And in fact, in the video, there's this guy who's poor and the actor is amazing, but the poor unfortunate guy, he was forced to stuff cake in his mouth and then explode, because basically what I was doing was I was expressing I was like putting all my desires onto him, and so forcing him to eat cake, and I was kind of put a love potion in it because I wanted him to fall in love with me, because that's what I was desiring in that moment, and then he exploded. So it shows that sometimes desires, they don't end up in the greatest of things, but it's important to have self-expression because you are a woman. All women are beautiful. So
On that note, RIDI, thank you so much for checking in with us. You are fierce, you are so courageous, and you're so talented. We wish you every bit of luck, and I love having you on our playlist. Thank you for checking in to 94.3 Radio 1.
thank you.
94.3 Radio 1.